I am here with Eddie Punch, who is a European candidate for Ireland South. Eddie, we never got time here on the Irish Political Roundup to interview you, but however, we are here in Kilkenny. You're here in Kilkenny today. What is your message to the voters on the last week, which generally everybody makes up their mind on the last couple of days of the election? So what is your message to Ireland South?
Eddie Punch is my name, running for Ireland South, and I'm running for common sense and standing up for Ireland's interests in Brussels, not Brussels' interests in Ireland. I fundamentally believe that we need to discuss issues that are really important to the constituents, and we need people with experience like me, who has worked for 25 years representing farmers in Brussels, in Dublin, and we need to have proper engagement on issues that really matter, like food security. I'm so frustrated to see trivia elevated in this election campaign. Which burger do you prefer? Which crisps do you prefer? People doing this who don't want to actually debate the issues about the future of our farming and the future of our food security. And our farmers are really frustrated at too much bureaucracy. But there's an important point here. It is, how do we change this? Examples include knowing the detail around Pillar 1 and Pillar 2 and the regulations that the European Union imposed to make it difficult for people to actually benefit from schemes like acres, like the suckler schemes and so on. The nitrates directive is really crippling our farmers' ability to plan for the future, and it is wrong the way we are sacrificing our grass-fed dairy and beef without fair play for our farmers. I think the EU disability strategy and rights for people with disabilities is a really important issue. Again, on the national TV debates, there has been no discussion about this. And I think mental health is a real problem right across our society. And I think this has to be at the fore of all policies that are brought forward in the future. I think every policy that comes out of the European Union needs to start with socio-economic assessment. How will that impact us on the ground before we actually start voting on the detail of it?
And the Irish farmers are being crucified in every way. Most of the farmers cannot even make a living on their small family farms.
People in farming are really frustrated that the Common Agricultural Policy has been eroded by inflation. Today it's 0.36% of the EU GDP. In the 1990s it was 0.54% of GDP. And in any money, that's shortchanging farmers. With the incredible increase in cost of production, that's why they have got their problems. We also have unfairness in the food chain. The Unfair Trading Practices Directive was a start, but it has been watered down by multinational retailing interests. And we need people in the European Union to work with MEPs from other countries to strengthen up that, to provide transparency about who's getting what out of the food chain, and to make sure that farmers get a fair share. We need fairness in the climate debate. We had the nature restoration law voted for by almost all of our MEPs based on wrong figures. We were told for a long time that the emissions from our reclaimed peatlands were causing climate change. We were told it was 7 million tonnes. A couple of weeks ago, the EPA admitted the correct figure is more likely 2.48 million tonnes based on research. That's not a nature. That means the nature restoration law is not based on facts or data. It is based on very wrong information, and yet our government continues to drive it, and our government insisted that our MEPs voted for it. We need that to change. We need to stop blaming farmers for climate change. Yes, farmers are doing their bit to be more sustainable all of the time. They've put immense effort into improving their sustainability metrics. But the fact is that in 1973, we had 7.3 million head in our national herd. Today, we have 7.4 million herd. In that time, the national herd has doubled, the national herd has stayed the same. World population has doubled, and they all need to be fed. And we need common sense to get the balance right between food security and other policies.
Small local farmers are having very difficulty even to keep their children living on the farm and staying on the farm, planning permission. And also young farmers now are moving away from the farm to the big cities to get jobs.
You see, A vote for Eddie Punch is not a vote just for the farming sector. A vote for Eddie Punch to put me into the European Parliament is about the future of food, and that matters to everybody. The cost of the Common Agricultural Policy is 33 cents for every man, woman and child in the European Union per day. That's €118 per annum. The cost of our health sector is 4,500 per annum for every man, woman and child. And without quality, nutritious food, you don't have health. And I think One Health is really important. The issue is that our young people are not going to take any more of being climate shamed in farming, of being swamped with bureaucracy, of being asked to run faster just to stand still, and to be able to, make a living out of farming. And they're going to choose to go elsewhere. But then, who's going to put the food on your table? And that is the issue you need to be thinking about when you're voting on Friday. Vote for people with the experience to stand up for our model of farming and food in the European Union.
Also, another issue is we are importing cheap food from Brazil and all other countries. And yet, we have the most richest soil in the world here in Ireland. And we are exporting all our good, nutritious food.
Well, obviously, Ireland is a small country. So, yes, we export food all over Europe and internationally. But I think we have to have fairness for our farmers. So if farmers are asked to adhere to a high level of standards, any food that comes in from outside the European Union should be at the same standard. And as a general principle, there is no need for us to import beef. That was a trade deal to look after the interests of German car manufacturers. I know because I spent a lot of time from 2015 to 2016 battling with the chief negotiator of the Mercosur deal. She told me that she actually felt sorry for us in the beef sector, but the heads of state had decided German cars were more important. But we did succeed in getting conditions in about the rainforest in South America being looked after. And it is only because of that that we are now having the debate on the Mercosur. I stood outside the Irish Parliament and the European Commission on protests in 2016, and there was very few of the politicians who are running for Europe today who came out to support us when we opposed Mercosur at that time. Today, they're all against Mercosur because there's an election. People need to be aware that there are a lot of promises been made in the last few months to stand up for Irish farming, to oppose bureaucracy, to oppose red tape. They're empty promises. Judge people on their record for the last 5 years. And we have been badly let down. We need better representation in the European Union from people who are putting the interests of the people who will vote for me first.
And just before we go, small local businesses, all this farming and the conditions that are put on farming is affecting small local businesses and the local economies and therefore the national economy.
All around the canvas in this constituency, I meet the same problem everywhere I go. Small businesses in the centre of towns and villages are being destroyed. They're being destroyed by green ideology, which means people can no longer park near to the businesses. And that's fine, you see, that's an urban mindset in a big city like Brussels where there's fabulous metro and public transport. But in a city like Kilkenny or in a town like Ennis, the customers for the small scale shops and cafes come from outside of the town. And of course, there are older people who have reduced mobility. They need to be able to park close to the town centres. If they don't, they'll go to the big out of town multinational shopping centres. That's what's happening. And there's a real sense of frustration that our towns are being hollowed out. And instead of a vibrant mix of independent cafes and small businesses owned by Irish people, our towns are becoming no-go areas with shut down doors. And this is partly due to the wrong people, making decisions in towns, but it's also down to ideology coming from international places like Brussels.
Well, your final message to the people of Ireland South and to especially people in Carlow, Kilkenny.
I'm standing for the interests of the people in the constituency, in farming, food, small businesses, people with disabilities, people with mental health issues, and putting Ireland's interests in Brussels first, not Brussels' interests in Ireland first. If you vote for Eddie Punch, you're getting someone who will stay for 5 years, absolutely committed, because I have the experience and knowledge of how Brussels works. I did European studies in the University of Limerick many years ago, and I've been working ever since representing the agri-food sector, where companies like Tier Lawn are so important. If you want knowledgeable, sensible change in how we engage with the European Union and stand up for our interests, vote Eddie Punch, number 1, on June 7th.
Eddie Punch, thank you so much indeed for taking the time to talk to the Irish Political Roundup today.